All right, what's going on, guys? Terry James, your mortgage guy, coming to you. And today, what I want to talk about is our documentation. When you are applying for a home loan, I want to make it easy for you guys. Want to make sure we understand some of the difficulties and why we have trouble going back and forth with underwriting, why you may even have trouble going back and forth with your loan officer, and kind of let's shorten the process. Let's make it easier with our documentation. So, one of the things that comes up quite often when it comes to documentation and when we start submitting stuff into your loan officer, what happens is there's a process where we go back and forth. Well, I sent this in, I provided you this, I sent this, I already sent that. So I wanted to come and say, okay, listen, when you start sending in documentation, okay, so to help the process go smoother, the first thing we got to do is make sure you send in all pages. Okay. So what that means is that when you are sending in documentation such as your bank statement, and your bank statement, at the bottom of your bank statements, at the bottom of any statement you have, whether it be 401k, whether it be your stocks, no matter what, every statement has a little tiny number at the bottom. And it says page 1 of 1, page 5 of 5, page 10 of 15. Okay. It is absolutely important. It doesn't matter if there's anything on that page. There's a page number at the bottom. Your lender is going to need all pages. Okay. So rather than keep going back and forth, well, I sent this in. I don't know why they keep asking me for this. Listen, start from the beginning. And the first thing you have to do is look at your bank statements and say, okay, if I'm sending in this statement, there's 16 pages. Make sure all 16 pages are uploaded. Make sure they're all complete and make sure you send them all in. The simplest way and the easiest way is going to be doing a PDF. Okay. And so for those of you who are familiar, the simplest way to send statements are in a PDF format. So when it comes to the lending and when it comes to most secured sites, a PDF format is usually the most accessible format for most lending companies out there. So you put into a PDF format, make sure all pages are on there. You send those in, email, fax, however you're going to get them in. Okay. The other thing to talk about is going to be not only are we looking at all pages, but we also want to make sure the pages are complete. Okay. And so I know that some people struggle with sending in documentations as a PDF or even faxing. I know some people still fax. That is possible in today's world. But one of the things is that when you're sending in, or even if you do a picture, okay, so some people are uploading pictures into portals. Most companies have a portal that you can upload your documents right into, or you email them to your lender, however you get them in. But the main thing is when you're sending in a picture, you have to make sure you take the time to evaluate the picture to make sure the picture is clear. Okay? So that means before you send this in, evaluate it yourself, take a look, because it's going to save you trouble of having to resend it. Well, this didn't go over well. Your lender is only going to look at it and going to tell you, hey, I can't read it. It's not clear. So take the time before you send it to look at it and make sure that it's clear. Make sure you can read all the pages and make sure whatever is in this picture that it is absolutely complete. So I can't tell you how many times through the years, clients will send in documentation and it'll be cut off. Listen, slow down, take the time. It's going to save you a lot of trouble in the long run. To when you're sending stuff, make sure it is complete. Everything is within the lines. You remember back in the day when you color, stay within the lines? Same concept. Make sure we stay within the lines. So when you're sending in the documentation, make sure your documentation is complete and it's staying within the lines. Nothing is cut off. So, for example, when you send in a W-2, if that W-2 is ripped at the top And let's say there's a corner missing. It says 2022 or 2021. And let's say the 2000, the first two numbers are missing. Save yourself the trouble. Get a complete W-2. Okay. If anything is cut off, even with your pay stubs, you have to make sure your pay stubs are complete. So that means that, oftentimes when you look at your pay stub, you have the top part, then you have the bottom part. Some people, who still receive physical pay stubs, they'll rip them off and just send the top part. So from a lending point of view, we need the whole pay stub. So I'm trying to make it easier for you and just send the whole thing up front, so you're not going back and forth trying to figure out what documentation it's in, and you're getting frustrated because you're having to feel like you're resending stuff. And so this help clarifies some of what the issues are. So even with your pay stubs, before you send them in, just take the time to look and make sure you have a year-to-date income on there. Because when it comes to documentation of your pay stub, you have to have a year-to-date income. That is very important. You have to have it on there. There's not a lender, there's not an underwriter who is not going to require year-to-date income on your pay stub. So take the time and make sure that that's on there. These are all the little things that will help you when you start applying and you're going through the process, that helps to make it a very smooth process. Because some of the difficulty is going back and forth on documentation. That's really what adds to the difficulty of the loan process sometimes, is because we're like, hey, I feel like I've sent this. These are some of the issues to look for. Your tax returns. One of the things about tax returns is you have to include all schedules. So that means if you have a Schedule A, you'll see it at the top left-hand corner of your tax return. There's a Schedule B, a Schedule C, sometimes a Schedule D, a Schedule E. You're looking at the top left corner. Whatever schedules are on your federal tax returns, if your lender has requested it and underwriting needs your tax returns, they're not always required depending on your loan program. But once they are required, all pages of your federal tax returns are needed. So take the time and make sure that you have included all pages of your federal tax returns. If anything is missing, sometimes there's going to be a back and forth even with underwriting. When they go to review them, they're like, hey, we can tell that this page is missing. So that's one of the things that you want to make sure that you look for, to make sure that all the pages are included on there. Okay. And so we want to make sure that the process is smooth from the beginning and that you go through it without a lot of back and forth. And so this comes with everything, when it comes to your PDFs, when it comes to how to send documentation in, when it comes to faxing. You want to make sure that, number one, everything you send is complete. You want to make sure everything is clear, that you can read everything on there, because this will just add to your frustration as you go along. Because yes, in the home loan process, the documentation can be quite a bit sometimes, especially if you have multiple filings of your tax returns, if you've had multiple jobs, so you're talking more W-2s. So it can be a lot of documentation, pay stubs, bank statements. It can be a lot, especially if you have multiple bank accounts. So you want to make sure to take the time, make sure everything is done correctly at one time, and you'll have a much smoother process by ensuring all your documentation is clear and complete. All right. So make sure we look at that. If you have any questions about documentation, make sure you always leave a comment. You have my message. You can send me a DM message. All my contact information is always below in the comment section. And make sure you hit that subscribe button as always, so that whenever I upload these videos, you're always going to be in the know. All right. So let me know if there's anything else. But until next time, take care.